So I grew up with dogs. We had dogs all over the place, all the time. Middle school and high school, we kind of had a farm. Probably had 5 or 6 acres. Had horses, goats, those kinds of things. A couple of cows. Always had dogs running around. Country dogs, right? And they would sleep in like the oil barrels. We'd make a little, put them over and feed them all kinds of bones and all that kind of stuff. Then when my parents divorced, I was in high school and my siblings were in grade school. We moved to a really small house. It was about 3 bedrooms. There was 4 of us. Small backyard, about a 6 or 7 foot fence. And at that time, my brother had a dog. It was his dog. It was a border collie that my brother named Sylvester because we were all into Looney Tunes and it looked just like Sylvester the cat. It was a dog. Sylvester, typical border collie, had tons of energy, run around, would jump on you. You could say, don't do that, which I guess he thought, man, okay, I'll do it some more. Would jump the fence, 6-foot-high fence, would jump it. You'd have to go chase him around. Actually, at that time, I raced motorcycles, like little motocross. And if he heard the motorcycle, he would chase me. So I'd go back home, on the motorcycle, and he would chase me back home. So he was a really fun dog. A lot of energy, but he was a fun, very, very loving dog. So one day, my mom came up to me and said, I think something's wrong with Sylvester. Something doesn't look right here. And I said, okay. So I walked up to the back door, and it was a sliding glass back door, so it was glass. And I could see Sylvester there, and his mouth was open, just open, and he was jumping around. He was scraping on the glass, and he was foaming a little bit, like he was had some slobber and stuff. And I was like, yeah, it looks a little weird. Let me go out there and check him out. And my mom said, no, he might have rabies. I don't want you to go out there. He might have rabies. And of course, my brother's standing there. What's rabies? And so we watched him scraping on the window and running around, his mouth's open. He's foaming the whole time. So us poor folk, what do we say? Well, he'll be okay, and we'll check him in the morning, right? That's all you can do. So I say, we'll check him in the morning. So the next morning comes, and my brother said, man, Sylvester he looks kind of rough. So I walk out there and I look, and lots of drool and foam, and it looks like there might be a little blood around his mouth, and his mouth's open, and he's scraping on the back window, and he's running circles, and then he's rolling around in the grass, and he's rubbing his head around. And I'm like, man, I guess something's wrong with him. And they're like, what do we do? And I said, well, where's Mom? And they're like, well, I don't know. I think she's out. And I said, well, I think I'm going to go out there and check on him. Someone's got to go out there and check on him. I just got to see. And he would come up to the glass, and he would scrape, and then he would stop, and his mouth's open. He's just foaming, and he would just look at me. And part of me is thinking, it looks like he's thinking, why the hell are you staring at me? Why don't you come help me? Of course, my brother was thinking, or my mom as well, he's thinking, oh, come out here. It's like, bite your head off or whatever. And I said, I'm just going to go out there. I'm going to risk it. And they said, it was typical kids. They said, okay, we'll cover you, So it's like, they slide the door because they don't want him to go in. He's trying to go in, and I jump out, and they slide it, and they're all, up against the door, and I'm standing there, and he's jumping on me. His mouth's open. And I'm thinking, oh, God, I think he's got rabies. I think I'm going to get bit. He's just there, and he's snarling and all that. And then he stops, and he just sits there, and he stares at me. And there's all this foam and drool, and he's bleeding a little bit out of his mouth, and his mouth's open the whole time. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And you always wish they could tell you what's going on here. So I sit there, and I look at his eyes, and because we had sometimes livestock would have pink eye and stuff, and nothing was wrong. And I was looking at his paws. And finally, I looked in there, and I was like, I think there's something stuck in his mouth. So I opened his mouth a little bit, and country dogs, you feed them bones, right? I could see there was a bone, like the perfect length of right there at his throat, just stuck, just like crossways. And and he's not flinching or anything. He's just staring at me like, okay, do your stuff. And I was like, man, what am I going to do? So I'm trying to reach in there, and I can't reach in there. And I can hear my brother and sister knocking on the glass. Don't, it's not worth it, watch out. So I dig my hand in there, and I get the bone. And then, of course, I've got a hold of it, but I can't quite get it. So my hand's stuck in there, and I'm trying to pull, and he's and I can feel him clench a little bit, and then he'll let go. And finally, literally, it just kind of pops out. And as soon as it popped out, I look at it, it's just a little bone. He immediately runs over to the water dish and probably drinks for like 30 minutes. So it'd been like a whole 2 or 3 days he hadn't been able to drink or eat, just and then he stops and it's empty. And he sits there, drool and all that, but now his mouth's closed. I say, okay, so I'll turn on the hose and I start filling up the bowl. He's eating out of the hose. He's eating out of the, drinking out of the water bowl and all that. He was really, really thirsty. So it's like, oh, we got to feed him. So he put the food down, it's just gone. So he hadn't really eaten or drank anything in a couple of days. So I guess he was okay. So then I go inside and my brother and sister are like, oh, thank God he's okay, he's okay. And then, of course, we're thinking, okay, we're going to tell Mom because you're not supposed to go out there. And they're all like, well, tell him he swallowed a bone or tell him he choked on the bone. And me being the older one, I'm like, well, how does she even know that's a bone? I'm like, don't throw a bone. Don't do that, type of thing. So finally my mom comes home and the first thing she says is, how's the dog? What's wrong with the dog? And we're like, oh, it's okay. And she's like, so what happened? And I was probably about 14 and my brother was probably about 9 and my sister was probably about 7. And my sister said, Ricky went out there and shoved his hand in his mouth and pulled out this bone. And my mom was like, what? And I was like, yeah, you just got to do whatever. So Sylvester was okay after that. He was a good dog. After a while, it got to where our house and yard were just too small, so we ended up giving him to a farmer, and he went and lived on an actual farm. But I'm sure that he avoided bones at that time. Thanks.